Hello, my name is RagingRaptor and I welcome you to a new World of Tanks video. And today we are going to have a look at the mid-sale tanks. At least for the EU cluster we have at the moment a mid-season sale, mid-season madness sale I think it's called. And basically a whole bunch of tier 8 tanks are 30% off via the real in-season, via the normal premium store right here. Yeah, it's called mid-season madness, there we go. And basically there are a lot of tanks in here, also some which at the moment are not being sold normally, like the FCM50T, Jack Tiger 88, I think even the 959 pattern, I'm not entirely sure about that. I won't show you replays for those tanks, we're just going to go quickly through them because there are a lot of tanks. I did, in preparation though, played all the tanks once at least, again to get used to them. So first tank, Amex M4 Emily 49 or Liberty variant here, doesn't matter, it's the same, just this one looks shit. Yeah. Tank overall, in my opinion, is a decent heavy tank. It's really good in the matter of, it is well balanced, it has a good gun, DPM is not too bad, it could be better though. The gun sadly takes a really long time to aim in and it feels really inaccurate. If you want to see what it means, I would suggest to watch my Lance and C video. If I actually did it, I'm not entirely sure. The Lance and C feels really similar when it comes to gun stats. The guns need roughly the same time to aim in and are equally as inaccurate when they're not fully aimed in. So that's a little bit of a problem with the Liberté. Also, one thing which is problematic is bad side armor and back armor, meaning, well, that artillery are going to love you. And one final thing, the cupola is also quite weak. It is your go-to frontal weak spots as well as a little bit of your lower plate depending how it is angled. Nevertheless, I think it is a great tank. It feels fun to play. It can even be used in frontline because when you can just use your frontal armor forward, you are good to go. And my cough is actually getting a little bit worse as I feel a little sickness coming up. Hooray. So this tank is not too bad, but it's also not too good. It's a decent heavy tank, it's like what a premium tank should be. Something good, but not overpowered. One thing which is a little bit sad about this tank is this tank would be amazing as the standard tier 8 tank, while the AMX 65T is actually pretty garbage compared to this tank right here. Because this tank actually plays so similar to this tank over here. So it feels awesome to play. Like when you know this tank, you know the other tanks, which is great. The next tank in the list is the Jack Tiger 88, or the Jack Tiger 8.8 centimeter Pack 43 Jack Tiger. There we go, whatever. I actually do enjoy this tank, but don't get me wrong, it is not the best vehicle. You can't play it as a normal TD. Like you can't be playing like a Scorpion G, like a Kanonjagdpanzer, like a Su-130 PM. This tank excels when you actually go to the front and use your ridiculous 3569 DPM. I do play this tank also with optics because I tend to have a good crew, as you can see over here, with all the few range skills set in place. And I'm also at the moment using a little bit of chocolate to get the juicy DPM out. The biggest problem in my opinion is that this tank lacks armor. Like even AT-15A can penetrate your upper front plate with gold ammunition. Like, yeah, it just feels bad. And if you think about it, it's the same as a Tiger 2. So yeah, the tank feels just a little bit underwhelming, especially with so many new tier 10 or tier 8 tanks which have enough penetration to penetrate your upper front plate and your superstructure with gold ammunition. The DPM again is great, but another fatal flaw is the accuracy. As it even though it is incredibly accurate on paper, this accuracy just doesn't matter, to be honest. Like I did some examples or some tests about it. I still have to do the video. Didn't get along with it already, and yeah, it just, yeah, accuracy looks good on paper, but it is not in game. 212mm of AP penetration are workable with, 237 with gold for a tier 8 TD, which can get matched against a tank like SU-130, against a Scorpion G, etc, etc, TS5 even. It just feels super lackluster when you think about this tank has more standard penetration than our Jack Tiger 88 has in gold penetration. And the same goes for Scorpion G, same goes for the SU-130 PM, etc, etc. So I do not really recommend this vehicle. Next up is the T26E5 and its Patriot variant. This tank actually is pretty cool. The only big drawback is its lack of alpha damage. And maybe a little bit the longish aim time, I think, but overall the tank actually feels really comfortable to play, and yes, it definitely is, in my opinion, a straight upgrade compared to the T32. The M6A2E1 has the same gun as, actually no, does not have the same gun. This guy has the same gun. They buffed this a little bit. Yeah, the Chrysler K, as far as I remember, has the same gun as the T32, and well, you get you get 42 more penetration in standard rounds, and you have equal penetration on gold ammunition. Yeah, so when it comes to making credits, the T26 E5 Patriot will do so much more than a normal T32 would do, because yeah, you not only it's a premium vehicle, but your basic round just feels so much more comfortable to play. The turret is also pretty darn strong, but fear not, the cupola is a weak spot, and the upper front plate against lower tiered and even same tiered opponents, depending how you use your gun depression, it can work, but it's not the best around. Like a T32, in my personal opinion, feels a little bit more sturdy than the Patriot does frontally. Next tank is the WZ121 GFT, the tier 8 DPM monster with frontal armor, etc, etc. Honestly, I know a lot of people which love this tank. It's fast, it has a great DPM gun, it has armor frontally, and I understand that a lot of people are saying that this tank is overpowered, or it actually feels incredibly strong. Personally though, I cannot get this tank to work. The gun takes too long to aim in for my taste, and it's still inaccurate as hell, at least in my taste, or it just feels for me really inaccurate, even though you have incredible DPM. Again, 7.75 seconds reload time with this setup for 440 alpha is ridiculous. And don't forget, 310mm of heat penetration, 248 standard penetration. I solely have to say you have to go for your gut feeling and maybe actually look at other people playing this tank. Maybe, yeah, get around in a stream, ask me if to play it, ask other people to play it. I'm a little bit biased against it. Again, I do not feel comfortable playing this tank as the gun is not, I can't really rely on the gun, at least from my experience. Next tank, the M4A1 Revalorisé, and one of the more or less cheapest tanks around, it looks like. I honestly love this tank. It's a really great tank, and it's like a charioteer which is balanced in the sense of, yeah, it's not something completely overpowered which you would get from yeah. The charioteer is better than the M4A1 Revalorisé in basically, I think, I'd say in all points. Yet the M4A1 Revalorisé still feels great, and I love this tank. I still have to get the third gun mark on it. Again, it's a little bit tricky. You can even use this tank in frontline, and it could work. I do not recommend it though, because you still have fairly weak armor, and at the moment with so many EBRs, like me, because I'm an asshole and I'm using a lot of EBRs because they're just too good. Yeah. He can get shafted by those EBRs, so keep that in mind. Yet it's one of the cheapest, if not the cheapest tank you can get in that sale, and I think it's a pretty decent investment. Like, it is a fun tank to play. The next tank is the Panzer 58 Mutz, or Schmutz, and Schmutz means dirt in German. Yeah, Mutz apparently is the Swiss German word for bear, hence why it has the bear on its side. And honestly, this tank, it's an Indian Panzer. That's it. Nothing else. Okay, I actually have a bad crew in here. What the hell? Whatever. It's just a Mutz. It's just an Indian Panzer. Nothing else. It has nothing going for it. It's just the standard sniping medium tank. And I highly recommend against it, because those tanks at the moment have no real place in the current meta, at least from my personal experience. So yeah, don't go for it. Next tank is this little behemoth beast here, the Love. And as weird as it sounds, if you play this tank somewhat hold down and actually hide this plate over here, you can bounce a ton of damage. The gun is fairly accurate. The sad point is, though, that it needs a really long time to aim in. But the shots are quick, the shots have good penetration, and it feels over like a good package. When I played this tank, again, to refresh my memory about it, I was placed in a tier 10 game against the 279 and Papakurvian, and honestly, I was able to penetrate the side of the 279 with APCR, luckily on the turret, and I did, I think, the most damage in that game. And I even killed Papakurvian, which was such a blessing to me. Kappa. Now, the tank, I don't recommend it, but it's not entirely bad. Like, to be honest, if the Tiger 2 would be like the Lovey, the Tiger 2 wouldn't be too bad either. But then again, there are better heavy tanks out there, or better heavy tanks you should look after, which are out there. And yeah, that's about it. The next tank which we have is the FCM 50T, and by gosh, oh golly, I honestly forgot about this tank like so much. Like, it's actually ridiculous that I forgot about this tank, because it feels so nice to play. I don't know, like the game I played in, or the games I played in, it felt so decent. It has a great DPM. It has somewhat armor. Again, 80 millimeters of side armor is the same thing as a Tiger 2 has. Just don't forget about that. It has such a great DPM, 2.6k, compared to the Indian Punch. Okay, well, the Indian Punch at the moment has a bad crew in it, with no brothers in arms, which is 2.2. It has the same DPM as the Panther 88. And the Panther 88 is built for DPM. Just the FCM 50T has more penetration on standard rounds and more gold penetration, has actually armor which can be used. And it's still quick around, plus it can ram. Like, I forgot so much about this tank, even though it feels so good. It's a little bit steep with the price, with $32, I think, or 30 euros, depending on what currency you're using. But I like this tank. I need to play this tank a lot more. It feels good, it feels decent, and it feels like a solid medium. And that might be a problem, because as great as it feels as a medium, it still has the heavy placket up there, meaning that you might get matched against a tank like a defender. And then your skill level is crucial, because you have to do the plays to get more damage and more impact into the game than a defender does. And this could be a big problem for you. So please keep that in mind. It's not that easy to play yet. If you get around knowing this tank, it is probably one of the best tier 8 medium tanks in the game, even though the placket says heavy. I actually honestly love this tank. I need to play it so much more, like, holy balls. The next tank which we have is the quite opposite. It's the M46 Patton KR, and again, this is pure bias, because I did not like the Pershing. I'm not the biggest fan of the M47 Patton, but I do decently like the M48 Patton. But again, I didn't like the Pershing, and I didn't like the M47 Patton. So this tank is a no-go for me. I don't like it either, and one of the biggest problems is the turret feels kind of weakish, and the shell velocity of the gun, or the shells, is just so abysmally slow. And it's inaccurate as hell. No, I really did not enjoy playing this tank again. So I have not really anything good to say about this vehicle. So yeah, and that's the sad part about the medium tanks for the American tech tree in general, at least out of my personal opinion. The pilot feels a little bit better, because it has, even though the gun is practically the same, I think the shell velocity is faster on the T25 pilot. It is more accurate even, and it has better DPM with same armor protection, at least on the turret. At least it feels like, yes, the turret on paper is weaker, but I didn't really felt like the M46 KR did more bounces than the T25 pilot. So yeah, I don't really recommend this vehicle. When it comes to a tier American premium medium, that might be actually a big problem out there, because we get to the Super Pershing in just a minute. the RAM was recently. I never played the RAM, even though I have it in a garage. Oh yeah, yeah, right. We have the T26E3 Eagle. Yeah, just don't forget about it. Like, this is basically the same thing, just a tier lower with worse penetration. So yeah, I still don't feel like, I don't know. I don't really like the medium tiered American medium tanks. I simply don't like them that much. And the same goes for the STA2. Even though they buffed it, even though it is at the moment one of the frontline rewards, I do highly recommend against getting this tank. Not only does it really need a lot of skill to work, because you have basically no armor to rely on. Your side armor is pretty darn useless. Your rear armor is even less useless, and when there is a wheelie boy around, he's going to screw you over. Yes, DPM is great. Yes, penetration rates on premiums and normal shells are great. Accuracy is somewhat workable, even though the better thing is how quickly this tank aims in, which is great and feels nice to use. But it is also not even too slow, but simply put, these tanks are simply not for the current meta. That's what I think. Those tanks are simply out of meta, and yeah, when you want to go for a medium tank, go for something like the Progetto or maybe even the Lansen. The Lansen actually feels pretty decent for the current meta. But yeah, the STA2 simply nah. Patriot we already has. Stritzwagen S1. If you like what Stritzwagens are doing, go for it. Like, it just feels great when it is a Stritzwagen. It is a Stritzwagen S1. It is a Stritzwagen 103. It is basically a better Udis in the sense of it has actually armor which is usable. Like, there's nothing else to say about it, that just the armor is actually usable. I think the gun is though less accurate and has less DPM. Not entirely sure about this though, because no, that again, I'm not sure how well those values are integrated with our cruise, etc. The S1 though, it just feels good for being what it is, a Stritzwagen. And the great thing is, with the 30mm of frontal armor means you can bounce every single gun which has 90mm or less in caliber. Except when you're shooting heat, then you're fucked up. Or screwed over, rather. Like, for example, the HWK 30, when he shoots a PCR at you, he won't penetrate you. If he shoots heat at you, he will penetrate you without any problem. Nevertheless, if you like the Swedish gameplay, just go for it. It's a perfect tank for that. Like, it's the perfect, yeah, it's the perfect premium for the Swedish medium tank line. Next tank, the 59 Patton. Honestly, the problem is a little bit, I'm biased towards it. I love this vehicle, even though so many people hated it. It has like 7 degrees over the front, 9 degrees over the side gun depression. It has this huge tumor, which is basically useless for you. You have the big gun mantlet, which is not that hard either. But overall, I just love how the DPM works, how the tank feels. Like, the gun feels so good when it comes to snapshotting. So yeah, I'm actually even getting higher in the gun mark than 95%. I'm at 97.48. I could in theory go for 100, but yeah, I'm not. I don't know if it's a good idea or not. Again, I'm totally biased towards this vehicle, and I adore it. Like, it's something so unique, and it just feels great, to be honest. I honestly think this tank I like to play more than the Type 59, even though I have more games in the Type 59. That's just because I had it much longer than this tank over here. Again, the Type 59 has a better turret, and it has special matchmaking, while this tank has not. But just the gun just feels so much more reliable than the Type 59 gun. You can see we got more penetration on normal rounds and on premium rounds, with more accuracy and actually less aim time, which is weird. Yet again, the 59 Patton feels, in my personal opinion, so much better. Next tank, the 112. I personally do not like this vehicle. Yes, the upper front plate is in theory great, but yeah, that's about it. And I am in general against tanks which have really inaccurate guns and horrible, well, gun handling. I just don't like it because I do not like getting shafted by RNG, so I don't need to play a tank which even says, oh, you want to get shafted more by RNG. That's why I just simply dislike this tank. If you are good and know where you can use the 6 degrees of gun depression of your turret, know every single spot on the map where you can hide your lower plate, it is a good tank. But if not, nah. And the problem is you also have fewer tanks in the front, and as far as I know, you still burn pretty quickly with this tank. Hence why I went for the big repair kit while playing it. Next tank is the Super Pershing, and like all older premium tanks, it just kind of lost its flavor, I think. Yes, they buffed the turret, but it still feels kind of weakish. Yet I still have to say I'm happy that it has weak spots. That's about it. But I did not enjoy playing this vehicle. I might have to give it more tries and more games to actually see how it feels. But I don't know, it's meh to me. Fuel range is great though, and again, gun depression is great. Turret can bounce a lot of shots. With the buffed gun, it just also doesn't feel too bad. 202mm of standard penetration is not too shabby. 258 with premium shells is also way enough to penetrate most tier 8 and tier 9 heavy tanks in the front, except for some rare occasions, like, I don't know, Object 705, for example, Mäuschen, because the cupola of the Mäuschen is a little bit stupid, but that's about it. The next tank, the IS-6, and funny story, like, I loved this vehicle when it came out. I played it a lot, and I just wanted to have this vehicle because it looked so cool. And for some reason, little old RagingRaptor back then with, like, I don't know, 500 WN8 or something, sold the vehicle because he needed credits. Fucking idiot. And had to rebuy it for more gold. I'm stupid, you know, I'm stupid. Nevertheless, I do think the new buffs they gave this tank made this tank a lot more reliable to use. But then again, we do have the same problem like the 112 has. And it's just the inaccuracy of the gun, which feels like, ugh, why? Also, another thing is, 225mm of standard penetration is shite when you think about the Defender having the same amount of penetration with standard rounds. And the problem is, the IS-6 is a heavy tank, so it will get matched against another heavy tank, which could in theory be this vehicle over here. And if it is this vehicle over here, I'm sorry, my little friend, you are in for a rough time. Yes, you can penetrate the cupolas, but that's it. Where meanwhile, he has no real troubles penetrating you frontally from what I've seen in experience, because as soon as you try to angle, those plates over here are a big weak spot anyway. Nevertheless, the IS-6 is not too bad. Depending how the matchmaking goes, you can do good amount of damage. But then again, don't forget 186mm of standard penetration is just BS. Next tank, the AMX CDC, Chasseur de Chars. TLDR, don't buy this tank. Especially not right now. And do not buy it just for frontline. The tank in general has a great gun if you think about it. The DPM is also not too bad. But then again, sniper mediums at the moment are out of flavor and do not feel good. Period. And you know what the biggest problem is? 30mm of armor. And how much penetration does this guy have? 75. How much penetration does this guy have? 90. Yes, the problem is at the moment there are a lot of HE tanks out there which can penetrate you, and it freaking hurts. End of story. The CDC used to be a decent tank, but the problem is they just got more tanks introduced into the game which are just better. And the meta shifted from like glass cannons being actually able to work to glass cannons being basically useless. So I do not recommend getting the CDC, especially not for frontline, because again, the low armor values are just your bane, and I'm going to kill you with this little tank over here. I'm going to find you and going to kill you very, very quickly with the HE DPM, which is like 3 clips, which in theory is like 20 seconds in total to kill a CDC. I think around 20 seconds, a little bit less. Yeah. Next tank, and once again, I'm incredibly biased against it because I absolutely hate this tank. The gun is like, oh, you thought you had an accurate gun. How about I'm proving you wrong? That's how this tank feels. And I love the K91. I love the 416, hence why I rebrought it with a mech crew. But this tank over here, by gosh, oh golly, it feels absolutely horrible. I might need to redo the vertical stabilizer with vents, because I do think the enhanced gunline drive is a necessity, because the gun feels so long in aiming in. The penetration rates are also not even that impressive if I think about this tank also getting into tier 10 games. The concealment is kind of okay with a concealment crew. The view range is abysmal, mobility wise just pure meh. Then you're just sitting here and like asking yourself, yes, it has maybe a better turret than other tanks, but the M4A1 Revolorize does basically this, but better. Yes, it has worse accuracy for some reason and worse HE damage for some reason and worse penetration with standard rounds, but those are APCR, so they're much better suited for sniping. Like, I honestly cannot get the SDG or the guard to work. I might need to give it a little bit more tries, even though I tried already so much, because I heard from so many people loving this tank, and I'm like, I can't get it to work. I can't. I simply can't. Next tank, however, is the Primo Victoria. And it is important to note that, yes, you can get a free crew for the Swedish medium tanks with the new upcoming thingy, which they said. It is important to note, though, there is nothing written that it will have free Brothers in Arms. And those bad boys over here have free Brothers in Arms. Like, you get Brothers in Arms as a zero skill crew. This is incredibly important because the upcoming Swedish medium tanks have free crew members. Meaning that all of your crew members have to have a lot more skills than like something like a Jack Panzer 100. Yes, like this is the cruise layout you will have on the tier 10 vehicle or tier 8 and tier 9 vehicle, and you can see our dear old commander will be basically overthrown with skills he has to learn, like concealment, repairs is really important, maybe even adrenaline rush. Those here are mostly useless, but you basically need a 5-skill crew to have the bare minimum which is needed to make those tanks excel at what they're doing. So if you plan on going to get the new Swedish medium tanks, you don't mind spending a little bit of money, I highly recommend getting the Primo Victoria. Not only is it it's a good medium, like it's a Centurion, just it gets outscaled by the Centurion 5-1, which is basically the same thing but with more frontal armor and slightly less DPM, I think. But overall, the Primo Victoria feels great and is a nice tank, and it even looks cool in my opinion, if you like Sabaton and those special. Like, this skin or this coloration, it looks a little bit weird with those things over here, but it's not like something way over the top like the Christmas skins or some other skins. So yeah, I do like this tank. Next tank, the AMX CDA, Canon d'Assault 105. Or Milsank? I'm not entirely sure. This tank is actually pretty interesting. Like, it is accurate, it has not too bad of a DPM, the gun is great, it has trolley armor, and it's fast. And I think it's a little bit of a hidden gem even. Like, it's a tank you kind of forget about from time to time. Just so you know, it has a better DPM than the Kanonenjagdpanzer. Yes, it has worse penetration, but it's more accurate. So yeah, it's a good trade-off. And while the Kanonenjagdpanzer, this tank over here, has no armor whatsoever and gets shafted by every single new French wheelie, the CDA actually has frontal armor, which in theory and when used properly can bounce even an E4 shell. Because again, this gun mantlet, those angles are pretty decent. It's actually a pretty good tank. The only sad part is that it doesn't feel at all like what you expect from a tier 8, 9 or 10 vehicle of the French TD branch. because it has no autoloader. So you're kind of like, okay, it's just single shot. But then again, I have friends which also love this vehicle and free marketed. I think it's a great tank and definitely worth your effort or money even. It's a little bit pricey though, at like almost $30. And yes, it can work great in frontline too, because it is fast. Yes, it lacks top speed though. At 55, it's meh at best when you want a fast tank, but it's overall not too bad. Like, it feels like a decent tank, so thumbs up for this tank. The next tank, and oh gosh, oh golly. It's one of the rare tanks I free marked, and it's this big boy. The Mauerbrecher. I free marked this tank. Does it mean you should buy it? By God, please no. Not only is it, I think, one of the most expensive tanks you can buy, so probably also the worst. Like, it has so many flaws, it's actually saddening. It has 3 frontal weak spots. This one over here, this, and this. Hooray. Against tier 8 vehicles which are shooting gold, this starts to be a weak spot. This part over here, small spot over here, is a weak spot. It's like 60 millimeters of armor below there. I'm not entirely sure. It gets easily penetrated. The gun feels actually good. It has decent-ish penetration. Still, Defender is better. The gun is actually not too bad from the soft stats too. But please don't buy it. It's so slow. It has no real armor. When you get placed in a tier 10 game, you get absolutely fucked over, because tier 9 and tier 10 vehicles can penetrate your frontal turret face with no gold ammunition, just so you know. Like, even a TS5, if he hits properly here and rolls average on his penetration roll, he will penetrate. This is 230 to 220 millimeters of max armor. If you want to be really sneaky, you can even shoot through here, which is 80 millimeters thick, meaning that the links can penetrate it with HE. This tank has so many gosh darn flaws when it comes to armor. Even though it should be an armored tank, like the armored super heavy tank. Please do not buy it. Even though I free marked it, do not buy it. It's, no joke, awful. The next tank is, I think, even the first tier 8 premium tank I've gotten in World of Tanks back in the days. And that's the T-34. You can maybe even see it from the win rates. And honestly, recently, I got to know this tank again. Like, I started to play it a little bit more again and feels good. Yes, it lacks DPM, it lacks aim time, it lacks even armor on upper front plate. It's sluggish a little bit. It even lacks armor over here and can get penetrated by gold spammers through the gun mantlet. But yet still, in most games, it's just a solid tank. There's nothing else to say it except for it being more or less solid. And I do think that the Patriot is better because it has more DPM. It doesn't matter if you miss shots. It's faster and it has more armor on the frontal plate. Yet still, it's not. It needs more skill, definitely, but it's a unique tank in my opinion. Like, it still has a place in the game, and I'm happy for that. I still do think that if they would give it more accuracy or rather a faster aim time, this tank would be bombastic and amazing to play. Because don't forget, this tank used to be a tier 8, a tier 9 TD, I think. Wait. No, it was a tier 9 heavy tank before the D30 got put back to tier 9 as a TD from being a tier 10 heavy tank. Hence why it still has this ridiculous strong gun with penetration values and penetration values being basically tier 8 medium TDs. But yeah, it's not bad, but it's not, like, again, it's not amazingly good. It's not like a Defender or something, but it's not bad either, and it has still a place in a game. It's a tough cookie to look at because it's also rather expensive. Next tank, the T92, and I do think, no, don't go for it. Because one thing I noticed with this tank is it's ridiculous wobbly to use. Like, if you try to snipe with an EBR or something, like you drive forward a little bit and then slow down and just do like quick little moves forward and backwards, it wiggles around really much. Like it goes like before it stops. This tank is the same. It makes hoot 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 before he starts stopping, and it's really hard when you drive and get to hold to aim at an enemy because your tank rocks forth and back. It's really annoying to use, and it might even make you a little bit sick. It's not too bad for a light tank, but I also do think, or it just feels like the DPM is a little bit lacking, even though 2.3k is not bad. It just feels kind of meh, like meh at best. 150 damage is no one is going to give a poop about it. And also don't forget you have no armor, so wheelies and HWKs will penetrate you for free, and your HE is atrocious, and you're not really accurate. And it's not even that stealthy, so I don't know. For like on tier 8 there are better premium light tanks which you can buy now and then, and as a light tank trainer maybe just get a get a T2 light tank. I don't know. Yeah, aren't there other premium lights? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, it might be the only good option to, well, level your light tank crews. Yeah. Well, this guy? Oh, well, no, you can't use this guy because it's a radio operator. Yes, it is basically the best premium for grinding your crews, but it just simply does not feel that well. It looks awesome, but looks doesn't really say much about in this game. Next tank, T34 mod 1. Since they buffed it, it's a little bit weird, I guess. It's not bad, but I don't really like the playstyle of this vehicle. It's not too bad. I think I prefer this tank over the T44 100, even though the T44 100 has better DPM and better mobility. But I like this tank more because of the added armor on the frontal plate, and I think even the side. Yes, this tank though has on the side those HEAT breakers, but yeah, for frontline I think this tank would also work pretty well, even though it's slower than the T44 100, but only by a little. The top speed is the big problem right here. Also, don't go for fuel range. Fuel range are on those two tanks atrocious. Panther 88, another tank which I actually free marked for no apparent reason. Do not get this tank. It is a huge, even though when you love Panthers, just get the Panther 1 on tier 7. Might be better than this tank, because with this tank you have the same problem with most medium tanks. It's a sniper medium. It has atrocious penetration. It did not get buffed while like other tier 8 medium tanks. It sees tier 10 games. 2.6k DPM is great, however. Please don't forget that 2.6 is great, but I'd rather have a little bit less DPM, but for example have premium matchmaking like the FCM50T, which actually has almost the same DPM. Hooray. For crew training it's great, however it has the same crew layout as the E50M if I'm not mistaken. Might have to look at it, but I'm not entirely sure anymore. Yes, it has the same layout as the E50M. The Leopard one has a different layout which would fit the MUTs, but overall I do not recommend getting this tank. It's not good. And the last tank is the FV4202, the used to be tier 10 medium tank, and it's solid. It's a solid medium tank. It's nothing ridiculous great, but it's not too bad either. The gun is actually pretty good and has great penetration values. The turret can bounce decent amount of shots when you just show your gun mantler, basically, the upper part of your turret face. The hull even is a little bit bouncy. And its mobility is not too bad either, even though it got shafted with the rework from tier 10 to tier 8. But overall, it's a decent tank. Like, it's nothing spectacular, but it works. It just works great. That's about it. Yeah, we went through all tanks, and this video took way too freaking long. I wanted to make it short, but yeah, there are just too many tanks. I think when I had to choose one tank you should definitely consider getting, I'd say it would be the FCM50T because it's unique. It's rare in the sense of it's not getting sold every day. Yes, it might be expensive, but again, it has premium matchmaking, which feels great to use, especially after the rework. It is fast, and it's basically when you want to have a medium tank, it's your go-to medium tank because it actually has armor which can hold off HE shots and shots in general. So yeah, thank you so much for your attention. I know the video is a little bit long. I didn't want to make it too long, hence why I didn't show any replays. Yeah, what do you guys think? What is your favorite tank of this big list? And let me know in the comment section below. I hope my cough is getting away sooner or later, and I'll talk to you all later. Goodbye, guys.